Hello, everyone. I would like, first of all, to thank Thibaut for inviting me for this meeting, great meeting. I will talk about the adjustment of barrel aging to the grape profile. So I work for Second company. I'm in charge on research and development. So this presentation is a compilation of the knowledge we have through the different research by our internal team and also by through the cooperation with Bordeaux University we have since many years. So the barrel aging is just the next step after the harvesting and vinification, and it concerns a lot of big wines here in Napa and in general in the world. Right now we know, so it's well accepted that barrel aging strategy should be adjusted to the wine, to the grape quality, to the grape profile. We need different barrels for different wines. But you can ask me, we are in California now, so the barrel choice is done sometimes several weeks before we know exactly about the harvest and about the quality of grapes and quality of wines. That is true, but even in this condition, we can have some adjustment which will be very interesting to look together, and this is something will I talk about in my presentation. So in my presentation I will deal with two aspects. First of all, I will talk about the different factors of barrel contribution on the wine, and after that I will talk about the grape and wine profile, which the classification of wine from the point of view of their barrel aging potential. So it will be a base of the aging recommendation. So how barrel contribute to the wine? It brings oxygen through the permeability of wood staves. It brings oxygen through the wood porosity. It also brings flavors, wood flavors, tannins, other compounds. It brings also the toasting arising compounds, which are modulated by the cooperage technique. So let's talk about oxygen. So oxygen, injecting of oxygen through the barrel maturation depends on the many factors, and some of them they are cooperage factors like barrel age or barrel size. For instance, we know that if we use the bigger barrel, we inject less oxygen than we use a smaller barrel, so it's completely understood. But beyond that, we have also some wine aging factors which can modulate the oxygen impact on the wine. I would like just to cite some of them. This is a date of filling. It could be management of sulfur, the management of lees, malolactic fermentation of barrel or not, tracking, etc., etc. I would like you to look more in detail the date of the filling of wine in the barrel. Why? Because it's very important date, and it's not really let's say it's underestimated by winemakers in many cases. Why? Because actually the oxygen ingress in the barrel, it's not constant during the whole aging, and it's very different from the beginning up to the end. So in very beginning, oxygen ingress is high and it decreases during the aging steadily. So the first part of this is the oxygenation. So there's the oxidation which comes from the wood porosity. So if you probably observed, when we put the wine first time in a barrel, we can see the loss of the wine during the first month. So we'll lose a lot of wine during the first month. And attention, it's not evaporation. It's not evaporation at all. It's just the impregnation of the wood with wine. So actually, we can have 4 liters of wine, which is go in the wood. What does it mean? It means that there is a 4 liters of the air released from the wood to the wine. So this is a just a funny word we found. This is oxygenation. We call it oxygenation because it's not oxygen coming from the outside of the barrel. It's oxygen which coming from the wood. And so this is a very important. And the second part, this is related to the increased permeability of wood in the beginning. And then during the aging, there is a less and less oxygen going in the barrel. Why? Because the moisture content increases and the moisture blocks the oxygen penetration. So two of this process result in the very big ingress of oxygen in the beginning, around 10 milligram per liter, which is comparable to the ingress of oxygen during several months afterwards. What do I talk about that? Because it's really very important. Young wine needs and it can incorporate oxygen more easily than the older wine. So the choice of cooperative aging technique could be related to the capacity of the wine to integrate this oxygen. So we can recommend in terms of process to put in the barrel a wine. If the wine is oxygen sensitive, we recommend to put it in a barrel as soon as possible because it can incorporate oxygen very easily in the beginning. And if, in contrast, the wine is quite resistant to oxygen, it could be put in the barrel later on. And either it's beneficial because if this wine is most of reductive tendency, we can in this way improve the flavors and open the wine because of injecting of this oxygen. So this is a typical adjustment which could be done without changing any barrel. Let's talk now about the wood compounds. So the wood compounds, there are a lot of sapid compounds transferred from the wood to the wine. And there is a lot of research was done about the wood tannins, allergy tannins, since 80s. These compounds, tannins, are the major compounds of the raw wood. And they were considered as very important ones. But now we have some studies showing that these compounds are not really very stable during toasting of barrels. They are not very stable in the wine condition. So taking in consideration the amount and taking in consideration their sensory threshold, their impact is not as significant as we believed before. But in contrast, there is some new studies showing the occurrence in wood of the Napa compounds, which is coming from terpene family or lignans. And these compounds are responsible of the sensory perception of a bitterness and sweetness. And I would like you to focus our attention on the specific class of these compounds called QTT, quercutritterpenicides. So these compounds are very important because they were reported as a natural sweetener of oak wood. So among two wood species we generally used for making French oak barrels, Sicily oak and pedunculate oak, we have very strong species effect. So the Sicily oak, namely Sicily oak, is rich in these compounds. And the species factors was reported as more important and really major in explaining of variability of such compounds. So what does it mean in a practical way? In practical way, it means that we can adjust the barrel composition according to the style of the wine if we want to make something more gourmet and sweet perception of oak, or in contrast, we want to go to refresh the wine with bringing this more bitter, more crispy sensation, which is called with trendy French name, tension. So let's move the volatile compounds. So among the volatile compounds, it's really interesting to mention whiskey lactans or oak lactans, compounds which is known now for many years. Why we talk about compounds? Because typically these two isomers, cis and trans whiskey lactam, together they are precursors. These compounds occur in wines, in barrel-aged wines, in concentration which is higher than their sensor thresholds. So how it's related to the grape or wine quality? There is two answers. So the first answer, this is a difference between sensor threshold of whiskey lactam in different wines. So the more full-bodied wines have high sensor thresholds, so they can incorporate oak more easily. And the second answer, this is a flavor synergy. So let me explain here. Some years ago, we did a study about the perception of oak in Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay, and we noticed that for the same concentration of whiskey lactam, Sauvignon Blanc looks as over-oaked, while the Chardonnay is looked perfectly balanced. Why? Because actually Chardonnay whiskey lactam flavor is more close in sensor perception to Chardonnay than to Sauvignon Blanc, because Chardonnay is characterized, as you know, by hazelnut, cashew, and creamy flavors, while Sauvignon Blanc is characterized by mostly tropical fruit, fresh fruit flavors. So I mean that here we can, according to the profile of the grapes, to make barrels which is more which could be adjusted to the style. Toasting. So the toasting and the cooperage. During the toasting, we modulate the composition of oak barrels, but we also generate a lot of new compounds. And these compounds interact with the wine, and there is a modulation of a toasting perception according to the style of the wine. There is two levels of such interaction. So the first level is related to oxidative or reductive tendency of the wine. We know that reduction makes oak perception more intense, while the oxidation of wine makes the oak perception less intense and more mild, like vanilla or candy. So according to the wine style, we can do with the same barrels more or less intense wood flavors, and we can keep the barrel keep wine in the reductive oxidative condition, and we do the modulation of oak perception. And the second part, second level, here this is a aforementioned the flavor synergy. So like in the Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc study, we have also different perception of the toasting compounds for green wines, more green wines, or for overripe wines. So again, according to the profile of a wine, the toasting could be adjusted to make something which is meet better to the winemaker for winemaker expectation. So, as we have already seen, in terms of adjustment barrel to wine, we need to know some characteristic of wine, and so we thought about how we can classify the wines using this knowledge. So we use this wine matrices, which is quite schematical representation of different wines. But here I would like to talk about these three axes we use, with first axis, which is mostly related to the structure of wine, to the concentration, so from light to full bodies. another line, this is from ripeness, from vegetal part to ripe fruit, and also related to oxidation status of wine, from oxidative tendency to reductive tendency. What I would like to say, that, for example, if we have light vegetal wine, the barrel recommendation will be different when we have ripe fruit, full-bodied wine. It's really, this classification, it's really hard to, it's hard to apply analytical control for this classification. So this classification is mostly done on the sensory perception, but there are some instrumental approaches in progress right now, and I would like to present them as a prospective. So, well, first of all, about the concentration of wine, about the bodiness of wine, there are some tannin test or phenolic assay, like Caroline said, which could be applied. It's more complicated if we want to characterize veggie versus ripeness or reductive versus oxidation. Well, for characterize the ripeness, there is a good marker, which is analysis of pyrazines. Well, it's a good marker for characterize unripeness. But for characterize ripeness itself, it's much more complicated. So there is a PhD thesis in Bordeaux held just, it was defended in 2016, about some new markers which could be interesting for characterization of ripeness, which is furanol and lactones. And if we consider the reduction versus oxidative tendency, well, we have experience about different varieties. So we know typically the Cabernet Sauvignon is reductive style variety. Pinot Noir, it's a typically oxidative style variety. But how to really characterize from an analytical way, we don't really know. There is two hypotheses about the analysis of chemical composition of wine in terms of pro-oxidative and antioxidative compounds, and there is also some approaches related to the accelerated aging under stimulated oxidative condition. So I would like to summarize now. So we have now some knowledge how to adjust the barrel to the wine, but it's still very recommendation we can provide. They are still in major part resides on the sensory perception, and there is we need additional research to go to more objective and analytical control for that. Thank you for your attention. So if I have some time, I will be delighted to answer your questions.
Maybe you can repeat the question.
Yes. Yeah, there is one question. When first filling barrels, are they dry or they hydrated or steamed before filling? Would this affect the initial while lost origin gain? We can put the wine in a barrel directly, or we can just hydrate it in some days or some hours or steam it. It doesn't change many things, because actually to go to the level of moisture content which is start really to block the wood porosity, we need to hydrate it, for example, for 1 month. So it never happens in normal condition. So if we do the hydration, we do it maybe for 24 hours or for 2 days or 3 days. It's never happens for 1 month. We can have actually difference in the initial injection of oxygen if, for example, we fill barrel once with one wine, do very quick maturation, and we fill afterwards the barrel with another wine. It's obvious the second wine will receive much less oxygen, and so it could be interesting technological solution.
Okay.
So the first wine will be kind of buffer, which will take all oxygen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrei.